Hi there, Heather Steves here, and today I want to share with you a layout that I'm making for my 2016 cruise album. Yes, I said 2016. I'm a little bit behind, but I'm getting caught up now. So I started by choosing pattern number 10 out of Make It From Your Heart Volume 5, and then I've gathered all my photos and my papers. I'm using the Footloose paper pack. This is a very old one from Close to My Heart, and I just happen to have bought the bulk paper for this kit. So this paper that I have here is the one that comes in the bulk, so I have lots of it. So with the pattern that I was using, I decided to use that paper for the biggest sections of the pattern, and so I'm using both sides of it. So you can see here that I'm cutting now the opposite side to get that ready to fit on my page. I'm just going to lay these pieces out just so that I can start to decide what the rest of my papers are going to be. This layout actually has a lot of different papers on it. And as a consultant, we used to be able to purchase these 6x6 paper samples of all of the papers that were in the catalog. And so this was one of those kits that I had that for. But I only have a few little pieces left over. These pieces, according to the pattern, are actually supposed to be 6.5 by 6 inches, but you only really see little pieces of them sticking out. So because of that, I'm able to just trim all these little pieces, and then I'm going to be able to tuck them underneath the pieces on top, and then it looks like I have a full piece under there when in fact I really don't. So I like to do this quite often when I can, and it helps me just to stretch my papers. So now I'm just taking some of the coordinating cardstock colors and trying to decide where I want to place those and how I'm going to use them. I end up deciding on this lagoon color because it looks really good with my photos, so I'm going to use that for my mats for my photos. So this longer mat is actually for these 3 photos all together. So I'm going to start by putting the individual one on my mat, and then I'm going to start to attach these 3 here. So you see that I get out my ruler, and I'm using the grid on there to line it up so that I can put my center photo on first and make sure that I'm nicely centered and straight. And then I'm going to add my other ones on either side of that. This is the size that you're supposed to cut the mat, but I don't like the spacing. It's a little bit off for me, so I just put those photos down and then I trimmed off that excess there. So this layout actually calls for the single photo to be on the right and the 3 photos to be on the left. But I decided that I preferred it the other way. I wanted the single photo and the title to be on the left side. So I'm just playing around with my papers here. And then as I make those changes, you'll see that I have a few little mistakes that I have to figure out because it's hard to follow along with a complicated pattern like this when you're changing things and you don't have it all drawn out. So I've pretty much settled on what papers I'm going to put where, and I'm just cutting up a little bit of this sweet leaf to have it ready to go. I realized that I think I want to distress my papers with some ink. They kind of already have a bit of built-in distressing on some of the pattern papers, so I thought it would look much better if I just went with that and did it on all of them. Unfortunately, I don't have the bamboo ink color anymore because it was retired a long time ago. So I'm playing around with the colors that I do have. I actually end up settling on cashmere ink, and I'm just going to ink all the edges of all of these papers. So you don't really need to watch me do all of that. So we're just going to skip ahead here. And now that they're all done, I'm going to start to attach them down onto my base page. So in order to best attach my papers, I've pulled out my Versamat so that I can easily line things up on that, as well as using my T-square grid ruler. Both of those tools come in really handy. I did actually attach some of the pieces to the right side page ahead of time, and so you saw that I lined up that green stripe to make sure that it lines up nicely with the other page. And then just use my T-square to make sure it was nice and straight. And I'm using that again to get this other big, large piece on there. And just realized that that green piece was supposed to go over top of it. But luckily it pulls up and I'm able to stick it down again. And now I'm just going to start to attach these little pieces that I cut smaller So as I mentioned earlier, it's supposed to be a 6.5 by 6 inch piece of paper. So on my pattern, it tells me how far away from the edge to attach that. So I put the one side down and now I'm measuring over to my 6.5 inches. The only problem is I didn't actually measure that correctly. So I have to pull that up and put it to 6.5. I put it at 6, I believe, and it's supposed to be at 6.5. So now that that's fixed, I can continue to put the rest of my layers on there, and you can see they're all cut and ready to go. And so I'm just figuring out how the placement goes, because as I mentioned, I reversed the sides, but I didn't just reverse the pattern. So anyway, I had to do a little bit of figuring out to make sure that I got these in the right spot. And it was a little bit of an ordeal because I was looking at it backwards but not upside down. So anyway, I did manage to figure it out. It just took a few times to get that going correctly. So next I'm attaching those little pieces that I cut on the other side, and these ones are the ones that I cut into 4 because they will be covered up both in the middle vertically and in the middle horizontally. So I'm just trimming them down really tiny because I had already attached this sweet leaf piece, and so I'm having to tuck them in. So it would have been easier to not attach the sweet leaf piece, or it would have just been easier to cut the little piece that I needed to hang over instead of doing the whole tuck thing. But anyway, whatever, this is what I did and it was fine. And once I got them in there, now you can see how they're all covered up and you only see a little tiny piece of them. So my next step is to create some embellishments for the layout. So I have some starfish dies in my stash, and I'm using those to cut out some pattern paper starfish. So I've got a couple of different pattern papers that I'm cutting out with those. And then I wanted to distress everything, so I've grabbed my ink again and I'm just edging this tag that I had in my stash. I have no idea where it came from. And I'm going to ink the edges of all of these starfish as well. So jump ahead, that's all done, and now I've pulled out a title from my stamp collection. So this title is actually from the Berry Christmas scrapbooking stamp set, but because I can search in Evernote for titles, I was able to find it, and it works really well with this layout. So I'm also cut up my zip strip there, some of those little captions. I'm going to place those throughout my layout, and then I'm going to fussy cut some stars out of the paper pack. And now I'm just showing you how I stamp the title. So because I'm stamping my title directly on my pretty much complete layout, I wanted to use my stamp platform to make sure that I can correct any mistakes I might make. So I'm going to try a technique here and see how it works out. I'm just dragging my stamp pad along that stamp to give it lines, and I'm pushing down really hard to see how that works, and it actually worked out fairly well. It's not really easy to see on camera, but there is a bit of a texture to it because of me using that technique, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So now I'm just going to start to add the finishing touches. I've inked the edge of those little captions, and I'm just placing all of my embellishments all over the layout. You can see here with the tag, there was an airplane on there, and not that that doesn't really fit because it was a vacation, but I just didn't think that I needed it there, so I covered that up with stars. The starfish. I've got a bunch of little starfish, so I'm just placing them in little clusters all over my layout, as well as the couple beside the title, just to highlight it a little bit, give it a little bit more interest. And I'm just using foam dots on most of them, but not all of them. So I like to have some dimension where some of them are flat, some of them are popped up. Now I'm putting foam tape and adhesive on that tag. So when I put it down, the top actually is raised. And so that's a little technique I learned from Vicki Boutin. It's good to use on your photos sometimes too, just to add that extra dimension to your layout. I found this ribbon in my stash. It's close to my heart, so color-wise it's perfect. So I'm going to use it, and then I'm just cutting one more little caption up here, and I'm dovetailing it, and I'm going to put that over top of the little French words there on the tag, and that ties it all together a lot better. So because I decided to add this piece of ribbon, I wanted a big embellishment to put over top of it, so I created this starfish in Cricut design space, I used the slice feature because there was a starfish, but it wasn't the same kind of shape as the other one. So by using the slice feature, I made it better suitable to the layout, and then I just trimmed it up with my scissors. I used some score tape to attach this ribbon down, and you see me flip it over at the back. I am securing it with some Scotch tape just to make sure it will slide into my page protector easily and not get caught. And now I'm just adding a bunch of random sequins. So these sequins are from all different packs that I've collected over the years, and just pulled them out of my stash, ones that match. And that is it for this layout. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and have a fantastic day.